The Berlin Wall was revolutionary because it was the first time there was a physical object that symbolized a world divide between communism and capitalism, and by extension, a symbol of the Cold War between the USSR and the United States, the major world powers.
The story of the Berlin Wall begins with the Yalta Conference. The leaders of the three major powers that had just won World War II gathered with the main intention of dividing up Berlin and Germany in general. Of all the problems that might have happened, the US and Britain did not even suspect that the Soviet Union would try and double-cross them, and the representatives of the US and Britain were replaced partway through the conference and its ratification. They had to deal with Nazi Germany as well as the threat of Japan. 4 decades later, people hypothesized about what might have gone different had the US and Britain been more strict with Russia. So things began to unfold, with two countries just a step from each other practicing completely different political ideologies. What prompted the government of East Germany to build a wall was what was known as the brain drain. This was when the highly educated population of East Berlin began to seep into West Berlin. Soon, there were very few educated people in East Germany. The government was forced to act, and the barbed wire came up overnight, with the concrete barrier of the Berlin Wall adding in the coming months.
In response to the building of the wall, the world was outraged. Although there was no bloodshed, the wall nearly started a war at Checkpoint Charlie. One of the famous images from this time is a picture of tanks from both Soviets and the US only a few feet apart, ready to start a war at the command of a superior. Soviet and American forces faced each other for a tense 48 hours, but negotiations prevented the outbreak of fighting. Soon these tensions subsided but never evaporated. Doing their part, the West Berliners protested, lining up by the hundreds as the wall came up around them.
The attempts to escape from East Berlin intensified, with people using their ingenuity as they tried to outwit the East German guards before it was too late to escape. The wall had only been standing for a few months when the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, made the wall a symbol of the United States conflict with Russia with his Ich bin ein Berliner speech.
2,000 years ago, the proudest boast was, Civis Romanus sum. Today, in the world of freedom, the proudest boast is, Ich bin ein Berliner. Freedom has many difficulties, and democracy is not perfect. But we have never had to put a wall up to keep our people in.
Kennedy's speech established the Berlin Wall as a physical embodiment of the conflict between democracy and communism. This was revolutionary in itself because it was the first time in the recorded history that there was one object that reflected how world conflict was playing out. This division of people who were fiercely nationalistic created a huge change in the world. East and West Berliners became divided, more than just by a wall, but by their way of life as well. The governments for both sides advertised the wall in different lights. The West Germans and democratic governments of the world called it a prison wall, whereas the communist leaders claimed it was a protective show. Outside nations, such as the US and Russia, suddenly became extremely involved in Germany after the rise of the wall. Suddenly, a Cold War had begun, and it had the potential to become very dangerous, very fast. The wall was heavily guarded. Anyone who attempted to get out into West Germany was shot. Over 5,000 people managed to escape across the wall. Many others were not as fortunate, and added their names to the list of those who died on the wall. As the wall became increasingly larger and stronger, the tensions of the world powers and German powers grew proportionally. The wall's physical and symbolic presence began to emphasize the divide and the oppression between the capitalist and communist ideals. Its existence became a sore spot for both sides. The wall was a physical embodiment of the tension that the people and governments around the world experienced. Years passed. Hundreds of people died attempting to escape, and hundreds more made it to the freedom of West Berlin. The wall's decline, and by extension East Germany's, began when Reagan gave a speech by the wall challenging the Soviets to tear down the wall.
There is one sign the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable. that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
2.5 years later, a reporter asked an important East German official, Gunther Schabowski, if the wall was open, to which he replied, yes. This led to thousands of citizens nearly getting shot by East German guards who didn't know how to handle the situation. Fortunately, bloodshed was avoided, and the wall came tumbling down. Less than a year later, the German people were reunited under one banner once more. The wall came down, and they were able to reform the communist government that had been over them. This gave the people in East Berlin new rights and new freedoms that they had not previously held as citizens of a communist government. Democracy allowed them to once again travel freely, speak freely, and to enjoy many of the rights that citizens of countries like the United States have today. The fall of the wall came as a manifestation of reform. There could be no clearer way for Germany to say to the world that they had truly changed their government and their lives. The diplomatic relations of several countries, such as Russia and the U.S., changed dramatically from this because it ended the Cold War. This extended the change not only throughout Germany, but throughout the entire world.
Germany could not only be seen once again as a whole country, but as a free democratic country. 11 months later, for the first time since World War II, the nation became whole again. The major changes were that the communist hold on Europe was weakened, and Berlin, along with the rest of Germany, was reunited.
Now people view the wall in a different light. There are several different opinions on how the wall was viewed, depending on the role that people played. Most people remember the wall for the destruction that it caused, while others, like the guards, believe it was good for Germany as a whole. However, almost all agree that the wall is not something that they would want to see again. Now the wall can be found around the world, shipped out in tiny pieces to tourists. There is very little of the wall still standing, but its influence remains. It is in some sense a pride to the Berliners, a sense that they can overcome, no matter what the odds. And although now it is a tourist attraction, many people know what it still stands for today.
And now it stands, more than anything, for a symbol of remembrance, that never again will anything like this happen anywhere in the world. Expert Serge Schmaman says, "When we talk of the Berlin Wall today, we mean a system that divides people into free and unfree lives. Korea is the best example today of a divided country. Someday, the wall between those two countries will also fall. For if something like this is not remembered, and we ignore those countries that take away civil liberties, the human race is all the more susceptible to the threats that type of system poses to the world."